almost. Sound guys. That's your my kids yeah, the sound quit working. Set break. So we didn't even get to play our second set. Well, two of them work. Yeah, well, you're okay. I'm running it.
All right.
There, we're almost there.
All right.
Ready now.
All right. You've started the live stream's going. We're good?
Live stream's going and we
All
are
right.
recording.
7:34.
This conference will now be recorded.
I'll call the May 2nd DeSoto City Council meeting to order. We'll start with roll call, please.
Tripp?
Here.
Daniels?
Here.
Hunter-Michael?
Here.
McMahon?
Here.
Lane? Here. All are present.
All right. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Our first item tonight's our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from the April 18th City Council meeting, approval of pay ordinance number 972, approved donation request from the Kaw Valley Sportsmen's Association, approved donation request from the DeSoto Rotary Club, approved property tax relief policy, and approved requests for special city council meetings. Is there any item anyone would wish to remove from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, can I have a motion to approve, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane? Yes. McMahon?
Yes.
Hunter-Michael?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Tripp?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item 2 is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. Does anyone wish to address the council under call to public? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Item 3 is old business. We do not have any, so we will go to item 4A. Consider contract amendment with Johnson County Sheriff's Office.
Yes, council, you'll remember several meetings ago, we discussed the possibility of adding a patrol deputy, a power shift car to our existing contract. Tonight, for your consideration, is a proposal to do that for the remainder of 2024. Also included in the packet agenda items for tonight is pricing for a multi-year contract. We've also discussed that, a provision for a 3-year contract with the Sheriff's Office. As we've discussed before, we generally discuss the following year policing contract during our budget deliberations, so this is about the time of year where we get those estimates on what that policing contract is going to be for the following year. And that has shifted. It floats based on call load and call volumes, and there's a calculation that the Sheriff's Office does in that. We were able to get those for a 3-year contract. And then also attached to your staff report is just a red line of the current sheriff's contract amended to reflect a multi-year contract as well. That's largely for a future discussion, in context of the budget. But tonight, really, the action item is the idea of adding a patrol shift deputy to the remainder of this year. And Sheriff's Office representatives are here this evening. Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to invite them to address the council about, some of the increased patrol activity that's been going on, and the potential need for an added shift car this year. The price for the added shift is just under $90,000. That would add the deputy for the remainder of 2024. If you want to do that, we'll need to amend the existing contract, and we'll need to ask Patrick to work with the Sheriff's Office to bring that back at a later meeting to add that. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, for any questions, and maybe invite Sheriff's
Yeah,
Office
no,
representatives.
I would invite Chip up to share.
Hi, Council. Captain Frank Martinez, Johnson County Sheriff's Office Patrol Commander. So I had sent in to kind of give you some ideas, because I know numbers can kind of just be overwhelming, and they're just numbers. So I hopefully get some visual aids here to kind of show you what we've been working on. So if you look at that, what we did is, as we were working through the contracts, numbers, et cetera, we use our call loads, and then we work with our statisticians to get stats, and they can kind of build out to show where calls are. So if you look at this is calls for service in DeSoto without your 6 car or basically your power shift car. So Josie works evenings, days, so she's the 1126, 1136 car that coincides with what shift she's working. So what we did to remove that, to show you how busy DeSoto is in the after hours when the power shift car is not here, you can see that that's a map of the city and the district of 1 and 6, which 6 is DeSoto, 1 is the unincorporated areas of DeSoto. So that one car, when your power shift car is not here, that one car covers both the city and the county. But you can see, based off the call loads, excluding Josie's calls for service, that the city of DeSoto is where predominantly those calls are being handled. The brighter the red or deeper the red is the higher the call volume. Just kind of shows you where a lot of those calls for service are taking place. And then the other, so it may be kind of hard to see, but so then what we did, also excluding Josie from the calls for service, those clusters basically represent in DeSoto where the calls for service take place. Obviously, the light purple color is going to be the lavenderish color is going to be in the city, and the purple areas on the outside, that's what we call the 1 district or unincorporated part of DeSoto. So you can see, based off the clusters, again, taking Josie out of the equation, you can see the calls for service within the city of DeSoto are heavy. We are seeing your city's growing, so like everything else, we're just seeing more people, more traffic along the highway through town. We are seeing an uptick in calls for service. And one thing I did do, and I'm sorry if I'm on my phone, but I didn't have a chance to forward that, is we were talking about Panasonic, just what we've seen. So what I had our records division do in the last 18 months, I had them pull calls for service, because people are curious, hey, what kind of calls are you seeing out there? Well, I can tell you, as it's starting to get more and more traffic in and out, we're not seeing your everyday crimes like high theft, like some things we see at other businesses that are large, that have transit traffic. But what we are seeing, so I can give you some examples. We've had a few assault calls out. So we've had 31 calls for service within the last 18 months. That's not a lot of calls. But in those natures of calls, we've had assault, multiple medical calls. We've had some warrants. People come in, or we'll see a vehicle. Officer could do a stop. It's associated warrant with it. We've had some civil papers that, as more businesses come in, we'll start seeing an uptick in civil process. So typically, like I said, warrants. We've had a few accidents. But so just a wide variety of things, but nothing too glaring like, hey, we're seeing a lot of thefts out there. We've had a few thefts from some local businesses around there, but nothing that's overly concerning at this time.
Yeah, and Chip, I wanted to add the discussion that we had the other day about there's reason to believe that the call load might increase as the workers transition from the construction workers to just the factory employees.
Yeah, so what we see is when you start having more, so I use this just because this is what I'm familiar with, intermodal. You get a lot of warehouses, you get a lot of, they get a lot of transit traffic in and out of the city, people who don't live there. So we do see things like theft. We'll see somebody come in, work there for a week, decide they're done working and decide to help themselves to whatever they can get their hands on. But right now in the construction phase of things, we typically don't see a lot of high thefts just because they're union workers, they're close knit, they've worked together for a while. So there's kind of, I guess, honor amongst their trade where they do stuff together, they go out after work. But as you start to, as the things are starting to get built and you start getting people coming into work, we're going to start seeing more and more type stuff. Some things we see in some of the commercial areas that's highly populated. We see things from, like I said, theft, an uptick in accidents. We see road rage incidents. We see batteries. So I'm not saying that's something we forecast, but just based off of what we've seen in the past, those type of things come as you start getting more people in here on a transit day-to-day basis.
And can you talk a little bit about the scheduling if we were to add the second power shift?
Yeah, so thank you to Josie because she has been working on ideas, being proactive with this. What we would like to do is, I know right now she works days and evenings because one important thing we've learned in working with the partners of DeSoto and Edgerton as well is that having a static 7 to 3 position, the people who go to work in the morning come home, they don't get to meet the community officer. The kids in school don't get to see the community officer. So we felt it was better to adjust some shifts, to put some on evenings, or to put her on evenings as well as weekends, so she can meet the community, be involved with some of the community events, go to the park, see the kids play. They can say, hey, that's our community officer, as well as those who go to work, come home, and while they're around town, they can see who their community officer is. So our plan is, if we get a second power shift car, we'd be able to put more emphasis on the morning, evening hours till about 1 in the morning. So you would have a district car here 80 hours a week. There would be a small overlap in the middle, but you would have good coverage from days 7 o'clock if the city still likes the 7 to 3, and then the evening shift would come in, say 4 to 1 in the morning, or 3 to et cetera. But we would make sure we get those 40 hours in, so they're not just bolt together. That way they're dispersed pretty well.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, so a question about timing. So take the 3 big bubbles that are kind of
Yes.
along Lexington there. 1, what drives it? And 2, what is the time frames in which a lot of the calls
So
occur? Do you
those
know that?
clusters are just based off location. We can dig down a little deeper in the weeds. It'll just take more time because basically those could be 5 houses down. They could be 1/8 of a mile apart. It's just
No, it's just this cluster.
right. So
there,
once you start putting the pins down there, just that bubble
Okay.
grows as it
Well,
goes.
then I guess just off the top of your head, what is the workload, if you will, hours? When, you talk about Josie being available for visibility and that kind of thing, but when's the time where large accidents?
So your peak hours are always going to be at least on, so I'll speak for K10 Highway. Your peak hours are anywhere from 6:45 to about 8:30, 8:15, 8:30 is where your peak hours are on K10. So I think that's why you see the second largest bubble along K10. Those are typically your accidents, but mix in there as well are your DUIs, traffic stops. It could be warrants. It could be just traffic citations. Anything calls for service. So when you see in town, typically on the east, what we call the East Y, there's actually a lot of people who, although they're in town, they fail to slow down. So we get a fair amount of accidents on these Ys on these corners, as well as just self-initiated activity. As people come into town, we're trying to slow traffic down. and your parks there. We get a lot of calls for service at the park, a lot of after-hours stuff. The co-op always seems to be busy. So we're in that area a lot. It could also be, the events, fairs, et cetera. So it just kind of shows you in the city where we are, whether if it's self-initiated or a call for service.
Anyone else?
I was gonna say, the sheriff's has done a good job for us. Like I said, I volunteered with them since 2010 when I went through the Citizens Academy. If you haven't, get a ride along with them, see what they do, be a part of what they have, and you see our town from a different perspective. I'm very supportive of adding the second power shift car pretty much as soon as we can.
Yeah, I had shared, it's been almost 50 years since we've had the sheriff's department as our police force. I think I was a student in this building when we went from a city force to the sheriff's department. So, been a great service, a great partnership over the years, and we do appreciate your service to our community.
Well, we enjoy the relationship we have. I know our community policing group is really busy up here in the summer, so you'll see them a bunch as well. And we're fully staffed on our community policing group, so you'll be meeting them this summer as well.
Chip, sorry, I was just curious, can you speak to the difference between DeSoto and Edgerton? Is it with the intermodal, are you seeing sort
So
of
the
same?
intermodal is busy, yes. We actually have been providing information as well, and a majority of their calls, I would say, we found were within the intermodal. So it is busy, but it's a different type of busy. You just get a lot of accidents, you get a lot of crime. I say a lot of crime, more so in the city. You get crime on those intermodal areas because, like I said, I know I keep using the word transit, but you get a lot of people who aren't from here coming into work and leaving. So we do see an uptick in stuff like that. It's just it's kind of nice when you go into the city because you know people and it's a little slower, but you go into those intermodals, you just get a ton of different traffic. And I will say that the roadway is really nice here. I was talking to Mike, and as you come in that area, it's just so wide. So I can see where it's easy to kind of be like, wow, this is really nice, and kind of tend to speed. But we've been proactive with that because the city has some concern. So our motors have been down here running some radar. Our community policing group has been down here because it's tough to what we don't want to do is take your car out of service just to make them static in one spot when this whole big part of the city is not being policed. So we've been trying to get the community policing group up here to help with some of that traffic enforcement.
You think like Panasonic, I know they're going to have a gated, secured community. Is that typical with the intermodal areas?
No, it's you do have some businesses going into the business where it's gated, but everything else around there is wide open. They've got a lot of open side streets. If it's specific for semis, they'll have a gate and they'll have somebody check in. Mm-hmm. But if it's parking lots, they're wide open, streets are wide open. They can kind of come and go as they please.
Any other questions?
Just comment of, so Leslie asked last meeting about adding the police and that we only had one car. And that's where my comments were. We actually have more than one car, but the power shift car being the dead kid deputy is our community police officer that is the one that gets to know our citizens, is the one that gets to know who is the one that you have to watch versus where certain things are. And so they really are the ones that become the face of the sheriff as far as the community police in our community and know our community. They don't rotate to other places, and having more than one of those is very positive.
Agreed. All right.
Well, council, then with your direction, I think Patrick and I will work on an amendment to the 2024 policing contract and bring that back. And again, we can discuss the multi-year thing as we start our budget deliberations at the next meeting.
One other comment is the fact that part of this is being covered by Panasonic as well.
That's right.
Part of the benefit is, yes, we're going to be paying some for it, but part of it's offset by Panasonic.
That's right, $50,000 in that community improvement district.
And that's ongoing every year. That's offset. So
So we need a motion to direct staff to draft an amendment, or
Sure, if you wish, yeah.
I think
I'll
memorialize.
make a motion to direct staff to draft the amendment with the sheriff's department for the second power shift car.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
McMorran,
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Motion carries.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is consider resolution 2041 regarding KDOT transportation alternative grants.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board seeking council approval to apply for a grant from the Kansas Department of Transportation under their Transportation Alternative Grant. The grant aims to fund new trails that would enhance connectivity and accessibility in the city. You may recall that this grant application builds upon a successful previous grant cycle for planned infrastructure improvement. It also aims to have an approach to expanding the city's active transportation network throughout the city. You may remember that in 2022, the city received a grant from this program for a trail along Sunflower Road from 91st Street to 103rd Street. That trail is scheduled to be let in September of this year. The projects involved in this grant application are to develop multimodal recreation trails that will connect underserved areas to existing parks, trails, and sidewalks in the community. Again, the initiative is focused on promoting pedestrian and bicycle facilities throughout the city. Most of the proposed trails in the grant are 10 feet wide to accommodate pedestrian and bicyclists comfortably. Exception would be the trail along 83rd Street at Laramie to Corliss, which is planned to be a 10-foot wide trail due to terrain.
8 foot wide trail?
8 foot wide.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 8 foot wide. The table in the agenda shows the trails that are studied. In February, the Park Board began its review process and prioritization. Staff sought suggestions from the Park Board and the City Council for the proposed trails. The trails outlined in the listing are based off the prioritization from the Park Board. Also, there is a typo on that table. The Lexington Avenue Trail is on Lexington Avenue from 95th Street to Commerce, not Lexington to Lexington. Forgive me for that. The table additionally does show the prioritization from the Park Board. So you'll see that Park Board ranked their top 4 options. The trails proposed by the Park Board extended over a total distance of 4.3 miles with an estimated cost of roughly $4.5 million with a cash match required of a little over $900,000 or 20% of the total cost. I am happy to go over each one of these trails individually if you'd like, or we can kind of move on. This is kind of a point for you. I can walk through each one of these trails, but we could also just continue on in the.
Any direct questions on individual projects anybody have? Do we need?
Okay, I will take that as a no. So based on the population, DeSoto qualifies for 21 million of the available 30 million in funding from KDOT. The remaining 9 million is set aside for communities under 5,000 that due to our population. If the city allows, if the plan allows, basically the city would be able to leverage community block grant funds to reduce some of the cash requirements for the grant match. The City Council has the final authority on the trail prioritization. The table on the agenda does include the rankings from the Park Board. So there are 3 things for your kind of consideration. The first one being the average award from the last grant cycle is roughly $860,000. However, there were communities in the last grant cycle that received well over $1 million. At the last council meeting, the council has selected the upcoming CDBG grant application to be a sidewalk along Lexington Avenue from Commerce to 95th Street. If selected in this grant application, the city could use that CDBG funds as a grant match, and they could leverage those funds. And finally, staff requested and the council approved the design of a trail on Sunflower Road from 103rd Street to 87th Street. The 2022 grant award was just the portion from 103rd Street to 91st Street. However, the design work from 91st Street to 87th Street section was done kind of in anticipation of this grant opportunity. The grant does require a resolution of support as included in the agenda item, and the dollar amount for that resolution is based on the costs associated with the prioritization from the park board. The resolution, if the city council decides to remove one of these trails or add an additional trail to this grant application, we'd need to revise the resolution. Finally, we have received letters of support from Clearview Village, the DeSoto Public School District, Merck, and the Johnson County Parks and Rec Board in anticipation of this grant. Depending on the final grant application, we'll reach out to some other community partners, baselines we've started with. And so with that, I would ask that, staff is asking basically that the council discuss and prioritize these trails, and if appropriate, approve the resolution at in the packet. And finally, the last page of this agenda item includes a map of the active transportation routes in the city. The trails we discussed and studied in 2024 are in red, and so this may help facilitate some of the discussion for the proposal. And so I'm very happy to kind of walk you through any other questions, or if you have any other concerns or wanted some input. Jay and I have sat down with KDOT since Park Board has met, and they've kind of given a little bit of tips and some insight into what they're looking for in some of these trails. But with that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you and ask for a discussion.
Right, thank you, Brandon. Questions from council?
So the Commerce to 95th along Lexington would be asphalt? So it would go from concrete sidewalks to asphalt back to the new concrete sidewalks?
Yeah, so that was actually the recommendation. And so that's something that we're going to follow back up with them just to make sure. Jay and I have a meeting scheduled with them next week. The grant application isn't due until the 17th. So we had a couple questions about a few of those. I'm not sure why they picked that yet. We haven't had a chance to sit down.
I mean, I understand going to concrete would increase the cost dramatically, but I mean, being that it's concrete already on both sides.
Right.
It was kind of that.
Route consistency would
Yeah.
tell you that probably should be a.
Was it part of that interchange might change soon, or was that part of the?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some consideration on that trail right there. But yeah, that is one of the questions we
That
had
could be.
about that. But that was the final recommendation that we had. BDC.
Good. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
I'd just say it's nice to see some of those connectors coming in, getting things finished out, both Sunflower Road and that Lexington Avenue piece. Yeah, I'm in alignment with what the park board prioritized. I think it's like good recommendations.
Since I know they've spent a lot of time discussing this over many years.
Yeah.
We'll make a motion to approve resolution 2041 for a transportation alternatives program application and maintenance.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Item C, receive update from Mays Communication.
Hello.
I'm Nancy Mays from Mays Communications. It sounds so loud.
Is it loud?
You're hot.
I mean, I'm a loud person anyway, so I do think the combo. I've been told.
Professional sound guy over here.
Okay.
It's better.
I'll step back. Anyway, thank you. I want to go over what we've been working on this past quarter, and then also, just as importantly, look ahead for what we have planned for the summer, which is a much heavier community engagement time. So, I think, Mike,
It's already.
you have a
Go back
PowerPoint.
go back to the general folder, Mike.
It's
at the
a very
bottom.
general PowerPoint, just to kind
So-
of help me keep my
No,
place.
Mike, go back, go into the Google folder. into the meeting.
Oh, into the-
very,
okay.
at the very bottom of it. I uploaded it while
Okay,
you were
all
talking.
right,
The
right.
sheriff's deputy was talking about it today. So it's at the very bottom.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah,
Now my mouse is giving me, I'm a sound person, you know.
there it is.
You wear a lot of hats.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you. There you go. So the focus areas that I'm going to go through are the media outreach that we've had this quarter, the launch of the inaugural in-home newsletter, which we're really excited about, flash vote, some different ways that we're getting kind of educational opportunities out for residents, crisis communications plan, and then the summer engagement plan. So I'll just kind of plow through, and I trust that you all will just stop when you have questions. So the first part is just a high-level overview of some of the media outreach that we've had this past quarter, which has been pretty consistent. A lot of coverage around the H&T plant, the recharge plant. Lots of reporters just wanting to know about the, development updates. The Evergy polls, of course, were, a big topic. And then even the new guardrails. We had reporters out wanting to talk about that. One thing I want to say about this, if you kind of go through, Mike, I've just got some other, just to kind of show the breadth that when things come out, it's reverberates around the area, right? The journal World is picking up stuff, so it may go out in one news outlet, but obviously it's going out everywhere. Here are some of the headlines that you can see there. I would say the really best part about this is we're really establishing some good relationships with reporters, and they'll just continue to be covering DeSoto. So, for example, last week there's a new reporter from the Kansas City Business Journal who now is covering this area. Her beat is basically construction and development. And she came out for a really nice meet and greet just to kind of get to know Mike and the mayor. And then it wasn't supposed to lead to an article, but then there was an article that weekend about the infrastructure because that came up in the conversation, right? So in every outlet, we have I wouldn't say every, in almost every outlet, we have a good, strong relationship with a reporter who's coming out and interested in what's going on. Just another quick thing was we had 2 reporters travel from Japan this past quarter as well to interview the mayor and Mike, which was very interesting. These are folks who cover Panasonic. And so they wanted to see what was happening in DeSoto. So those are good opportunities to go back and be in, Asian press talking about this, great place where companies can come and build. So that's always a good opportunity as well. So those will just kind of keep coming in.
Couple
Yes,
questions
Courtney,
before
go.
we move on to the
Yeah.
next section. Do we do any sentiment tracking of news coverage? Because, obviously, something talking about
Yep.
growth and the infrastructure is far different than, say, coverage of the Evergy polls.
Yes.
In terms of sentiment and so forth.
We can. We haven't, but that's a great thing, and I can definitely add that into the mix because I have a media database that we can look at.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
I think
I
that
do
would
think
be
that's a good
lot
idea.
better
Yeah,
barometer than just saying
that we're
not a
getting the
lot of
coverage, right?
But what kind of coverage?
Yeah, I would say
are
that
we getting?
yes, you're right, and I would say probably that it's very clear that it's fair with a couple of exceptions, right? But I think getting the actual through the algorithm is a great idea.
Yeah, and even, just kind of giving us a gauge of subject matter, like, we know some of the
Yes.
obviously hot topics, but understanding that would be great. As well as, I don't know if we do any tracking of, kind of what's proactive versus reactive media.
Yep, I can put that together.
That would be good.
I feel like a quarterly media report as opposed to, with that into it. And I can give that to you guys, put all that together and give it to you. I do have a question though, on that note. I'm assuming it's helpful to send out PDFs of articles as soon as they happen to you all,
Absolutely.
right? That way, because not everyone has a subscription to the Star or the Johnson County Post or whatever. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is helpful, because in the community, I know,
Yep.
like, the Kansas City Star did the article on Clearview.
Yes.
Which was actually a very good article.
It was a good article.
It was a well-done article, and when it gets posted, people are like, I can't see it. And
Right, right. Yeah, that is because so few people take it. Yep, I can send you a PDF. Regarding the proactive and reactive, I'll include that as well. I will caveat that with it's a little deceptive simply because we've worked really hard to get relationships with reporters, right? So, Kevin may call from Fox 4, hey, I don't really have anything going on. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like I pitched him, but he knows that we have that. But still, that's a good point. Yeah, thanks. Any other questions about that? Okay. Coming up will be the inaugural in-home newsletter. This is a chart from the survey with ETS that we did 2 years ago, so it might just not look familiar to everybody. But we just wanted to point out that having a mailed newsletter, an email newsletter and a mailed newsletter were the two top priorities for residents in terms of communications. The email newsletter has already been established and going out. We're going to go into that a little bit more in depth with that in a little bit. But for the mailed newsletter, that we did pilot one last year in June, was that right, Whitney? June or July? And the first one is going to go out next week, and that will then start going out quarterly, right? And so that will be in lieu of the news that used to be in Discovering DeSoto. So that will be new.
It's a little hard to read, but is the
Sorry.
third thing up there, is that texting?
Yes, that is texting.
And it's so funny because this actually came up both actually with a couple residents, as well as it came up in discussion when I was at the Kansas League of Municipalities training. Another community talked about using texting more.
Yes.
So is that something we're taking
Looking
a look
at?
at? Because I think that there's a non-zero sum of people who are living in a post-email world.
Yes. That is very true, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a very interesting consideration.
We have not looked at an app for that in terms of like building out the infrastructure. It was first just let's get these pathways going, but I do think that could be something that is looked at in the future. Notify Joco is something that we also introduced this past year that the city hadn't had before, and that is, you can receive those via text, and people are amenable to doing that, right? So I do think there could be that pathway.
Yeah. I think that'd be really
worth looking at.
Especially, like I said, I've had a couple of residents mention that to me. Like, oh yeah, I'd opt in for text.
Right.
Okay.
And that could be something to explore further in the fall survey with ETS, right? Because there will be a whole section on communications. So, yeah, that's good.
'cause on the texting, I mean, you want to use it judiciously to where
Yes.
you're not spamming them.
Right.
But at the same time, I know we just added texting within Teams through a third-party service at the church that I'm at. Because even in trying to clean up our database, people weren't responding to emails or calls.
Yeah.
But, and volunteers were responding to texts and not
Right.
other, to where the response rate was actually substantially higher.
And I think that the idea.
It's just the nature of the society we're in at this point.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we just live on our phones, right? So I think the challenge would, not the challenge, but we'd want to have a framework for what kind of news goes out via text, right? Also, would there be the opportunity to say, the newest city newsletter's out, check here, right? So maybe they're not getting the email, but we can do that via that way, right? So Notify Joco may have that as a thread. We can look into that, they may, yeah. I don't know that it's intended for that use, but it could be used in that way. Yeah. Thank you. So I think the next one just kind of shows that the thematically, the first one is kind of very focused on infrastructure. In July, that will be on the heels of the state of the city, right? And so that will be a primary focus there. We haven't filled out the themes for the rest of the year because we want to be responsive to what some of the concerns and issues and what are the things that people are talking about, right? So, but those are the dates for the remainder of them. We also launched Flash Vote this quarter, which we're pretty excited about. We just had the second one this week. The first one was about the community center survey. About 200 people participated, and I'm assuming everyone knows what Flash Vote is, but I'll give a brief thing. It's also just a quick, do you want to opt in to have a voice in city issues, right? And Has anybody here opted in to get the flash votes? Okay, great. So the one we just sent out was about kind of resident sentiment and understanding of development. We had the opportunity to have a high-level look at the results this afternoon, and we will be kind of digging into them. But one shining moment was that about 53% of the residents said they were very optimistic to somewhat optimistic about development in DeSoto. So that was good. Now, what we're going to do is kind of really parse it out, like who's saying that, what age, what tenure, that kind of thing. Another thing that I looked at right away, Whitney, correct me if I'm misremembering this, but was people who are optimistic and pessimistic, where are they getting their information? The people who are very to somewhat optimistic are getting their information from city sources. The people who are pessimistic are getting their information from word of mouth and non-city run Facebook pages. So I think that that's very, very interesting. So once they're kind of reading city news,
Predictable.
it was predictable, but also reassuring because you don't know. So yeah, I agree. So we'll have a high-level look at those results tomorrow. So we just barely got them today. Any questions about the flash vote? I think we can do like 6 or 7 a year, right? Yeah. So other topic ideas, send them on. Another tool that we've put together and is online, and I would encourage you all to use with constituents whenever you need to kind of clarify information, is like one-pagers, we call them, on new infrastructure projects, even though they're often 2 pages front and back, and they're posted to the website. These are pretty much reserved for just like facts on these topics, right? But if there is a topic where you think, hey, this would be great to have a one-pager on, to share broadly, it wouldn't be a good use of resources if it's just one resident. But if there's a pattern or we think like people really want to know about this, let us know, because I think that would be a good use. And then finally, finished with phase 1 of the crisis communications plan for the city, reviewing, kind of going through edits now. Here's the timeline for that. May 10th is when the first round of edits should be done. Then we'll have a staff review of the crisis communications plan, and then we'll have a council roll out shooting for late June. It'll depend on what else is on your calendar. So that has been the primary focus this past quarter, and also planning for a summer engagement plan, since there's a lot more opportunities for resident and face-to-face interaction in the summer. So the thought was, how do we take advantage of that? So the kind of overall goals there, as we just want more and more people to be taking news from city sources. Right now, the open news rate for the biweekly city newsletter is 70%, over 70%, which is like unheard of high. That is like off the charts, more than double of what you would pray for in any other situation. We have about between 700 and 800 people who currently take it. So the goal is to really, really increase that, right? Because that's where folks can be getting solid news, and it drives to the website all the time. So we go into that a little bit more on how we can possibly get more people to do that this summer. So these are ideas. These are ideas that we've kind of talked about, and many will happen. We might get feedback that I don't think that's a good idea, so we won't. So we're finalizing all of these. But so if you go to phase 1, that next one, yeah. So better understanding of resident sentiment through flash vote survey. We did that. We're going to use those key findings to sort of tailor the messaging for the summer. Like where are the patterns? Like what are people really confused about, right? And how can we address that? We're also, this has already been created, a postcard to send to every household highlighting engagement opportunities. That is going to be mailed out, I don't know, soon, yes, right away. It'll have all of the citywide events on one side and all the communication tools that you can use to engage in the city on the back side. So some other, if you kind of keep moving, thank you, Mike. Engagement opportunities, we're going to, city table at all concerts. and all, events that we can, some sort of incentive, like a small tchotchke for folks who sign up for the newsletter on site, and also some sort of engagement activity to gather resident feedback. This is common, and Courtney just did her first one at Cause Coffee, but we felt like it would be a good idea if council members or any of them wanted to sort of have some cookies with the council, just to sort of have folks come in. I know that probably, you don't know what you're going to get. Are people going to come? Are they not? But opening the doors for that is something that we would love to help organize. We can also have one page up there with key topics, right? So if folks have questions, take away. Other ideas were to host a virtual town hall. We have pretty much exhausted all social groups in Kansas City for Mike to go and visit, right? Every chamber, everything.
Exhausting.
He has done what we call the dog and pony show. And we'll be doing like round 2. I mean, you've already been to Overland Park Chamber like twice. So we thought it could be a good idea to have a virtual town hall where that would be, some folks could come. Maybe we hosted at the senior center, still hammering out details. But basically, it would be that overview of here's everything that's going on. Here's the infrastructure. Here's what it is, right? So folks could hear all of that information. It's something that, companies do all the time. So we want to do it in a way that is safe and also very efficient use of everyone's time. So hammering through the details on that. If folks have any thoughts, I would love to hear them now or later. Also, thinking about a fall open house with partners. It could be an opportunity to partner with USD 232, a high school learning opportunity, have it there, just as we've done in the past, but that will be right before everything opens, so it would be a great time to give folks additional information. So you can skip that slide because we have the postcard already done and designed. Okay. So just got a couple more slides here. The other one is incentivizing e-newsletter signups, which I said, I would love for you all to have a friendly competition to see who could get the most signed up. I see everyone just looking so excited by that idea. At a minimum, what I would suggest is this. If people are asking you questions, it's a great opportunity to say, where do you get your city news? Where do you get your news from? Right? Are you signed up for this and that? I think that if you all as leaders could kind of, help with that, that could be very helpful. And also you'll hear, well, no, I'm getting it all from in and around DeSoto, which, by the way, 70% of the people who are on that page do not live in DeSoto. So, and then this is a very fun thing that we have the very first one done. I just need to send it to city to factually review, though Brandon did look at the script, is we're building a library of explainer videos about topics around development so that folks super easy to share that on social media. The first one looks at economic incentives. So we'll take, it's complete, it just needs to be reviewed by city, and then we can send it out next week. But we're gonna pick the 5 to 7 key topics, and I think the flash vote information that we're gonna be looking through will really give us an idea of what are folks concerned about. But it's just about a 2-minute video that talks about economic incentives. So some other topics were how does a city council meeting run, and I can't remember. We came up with 10 ideas. So, yep. Any questions about that?
Okay.
Oh, and then after we're gonna look at the effectiveness of everything we did, and then prepare for the fall community-wide survey. So, any other questions? Okay.
Just one thought for,
Yes.
a flash vote might be
Yes.
a great way to find out what questions people have,
Oh.
unanswered, just do a flash vote around,
We're gonna be asking for the survey, you mean? Yeah, what do you wanna know?
what do you want to know when thinking
Yeah,
about the education and so forth, because there might be something that we
don't even think about.
don't think about.
Yeah.
But that's really top of mind, or patterns that we see.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, people are very confused about who pays for economic development. That was an easy one to do first because it's there's a lot of confusion. So yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Real quick, Council. Nancy, I really appreciate the work Nancy does, and I know you give a great presentation and your involvement, but I do want to thank and recognize Whitney.
Yeah, that's why I look to her all the time.
Amazing
She's the
No,
we.
really, just the breadth and width of the topics that she's able to cover.
Yes.
I mean, there's some complicated stuff. It's difficult to communicate that in an effective and professional manner, and just the professionalism of the end product, just the visuals. I mean, I don't know where we'd be without Whitney. So I really wanted to take just a minute to
Yes.
thank you for your hard work. It's not always easy looking at Facebook comments and
I
taking
know.
a step back and it's just it's there's a lot of things she has to be very good at, and she's very good at a lot of things.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
All right. Thank you. Item 5, executive session. We don't have anything tonight, right? So we will go to advisory reports. Mike?
No report this evening, council. Thank you.
All right. Patrick?
Ditto for me.
Nice report. Thank you, Patrick. No Brad. So we will go to Joe. What do you got, Joe? Nothing. Brandon?
I'll round us out. Yeah, nothing.
Well, we'll just see what we have now. We'll go to council comments. Danny, anything for the group tonight?
Just one thing, I wanted to thank Jay Gavin for, the extra work he spent on a computer with an 80-year-old, trying to get him how to fill out a report on the website in DeSoto. So, Jay Gavin went above and beyond and, did a good job and got the thing taken care of.
All right.
So that's kind of, some of our older people aren't very computer apt, and Jay took him by the hand and said, you gotta push this, you gotta push this, and he did it, and he was so happy. And so anyway, he called me and told me what a great job he did. Took him 2 days to do it, but he said what a great job that Jay did to take care of me.
Good. That's good to hear. Thanks. We'll pass that on.
Thank you, Danny.
That's it, Mayor, thank
All
you.
right, Victoria, nothing tonight? Rob?
I do have some stuff to kind of update council on, and it's good stuff. Courtney and I both have had a resident on 95th Street between Sunflower and Lexington reach out to us, and we have been working together to where we ended up having a meeting Tuesday night with most of the residents that were on the north side of 95th Street between Sunflower and Lexington. And Joe was able to be there because they're actually interested in being possibly part of the sewer benefit district. And so we spent an hour and a half with them in a meeting, and it was very, very good, very, very productive. I think it exceeded Courtney's expectations, my expectations, and most of theirs. There was one person for sure that was not there because her daughter had a birthday that night. And I followed up with her in a phone call today and actually had a very productive conversation with her as well. And we've also been in touch with some of the ones on the south side of 95th Street. So amazingly enough, there's nearly 100% consensus on wanting to see sewers on that street from the residents. So that's a good thing. Another thing that came out of that, and I've talked to Mike about this and Mayor, and I'll be asking for it to be brought back at the first meeting in June probably, is to the community center study and the study for that southwest corridor area, because I had some objections to it. One of them was need to be in contact with and get some of the buy-off of the residents first. And that has happened a lot sooner than anticipated. And it's been very, very positive interactions with what has been going on with them this week. So just kind of wanted to give a heads up and say that there's some good things that are happening as far as the communication with the residents and helping them with some of the things that they're actually asking for at this point.
Thank you, Rob. Courtney?
Yeah, I would just, to echo some of what Rob said, it was a really positive community engagement that's happened this week, and really just grateful for the residents who have reached out, and kind of that aha moment, if you will, that some of them were having, that, you know, when we do all reach out and start talking face to face, you know, that's kind of where a community gets built. So that felt really great. Also really grateful to the residents who did come out to the first coffee I hosted out at Cause. It was great to have some conversations and had some really good input from residents on things they'd like to see in the community, and as well as just small requests, like routing of construction traffic that we've been able to address. So really appreciated that feedback. And then it was in our consent agenda, but I just want to kind of double click, if you will, on the fact that we just approved the property tax relief policy. And I know that Brandon's going to be working to schedule some open house hours at the senior center to help our residents with those applications, and just I think that's some much needed relief. Thank you, Brandon, for your work on that, and certainly looking forward to being part of the open houses and rollouts of that program.
Thank you. Kevin?
Just a heads up, I had emailed meeting, so.
And I've already emailed that I will not be here. That's going to be my third Suns Eagle Board of Review.
So with that in mind, are we all, the remainder of us planning to be at the? All right, good. All right, we can still have a meeting.
That's all.
All right. Well, I would like to thank Rob and Courtney for your efforts this week in meeting with the residents, and look forward to what that might bring. I don't have any other comments, so
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.
This conference is no longer being recorded.